The 3D changes probably haven't come in yet for your manifestation, but there is a good reason why. I'm going to show you exactly how to lock in the results you want for your reality and the changes that you want to see. Hey guys, welcome back and welcome to any new viewers. We are diving into your 3D reality and why right now, or maybe for a period of time, or in an up and down seeming type of way, you've been seeing the opposite, or even just not really seeing the changes, not seeing the results and the movement come in, and not experiencing the outcome that you want yet. I'll tell you right now, spoiler, it's not a reason to panic or think you failed or want to give up. That is not a reason to give up at all. I'm going to finish up the video with talking about exactly how to keep the changes coming in. I'm also going to talk about why the changes happen, what actually leads to it, what you're going to experience during that time. So definitely keep watching, because I always structure my videos in a way where I dive into all the answers and topics and niche areas that actually tie into this. I'm not just going to regurgitate a bunch of information. I like to really structure it in a way that is relatable to people. So definitely keep watching, and now let's get into it. If you're not persisting in the new state, and what I mean by new state is the new way of thinking, being in the end result, you don't need to completely delude yourself, obviously. We understand logically that we're living in our certain realities, but mentally embodying, living mentally for yourself, what you internally experience in the new state, in the new reality, being the version of you, thinking like that version of you, feeling like that version of you, just kind of, not engaging in things that would oppose you being in that desired reality. So if you're not engaging and persisting consistently, not perfectly, but consistently, in that new state, then chances are that's what's holding it back right now. You're not being consistent, you're not teaching your mind and holding on to that outcome as if it's already true, not continuing to convince your mind that it's already true. You keep jumping back to the current state or the unfavorable circumstances. So what it means is mentally embodying it as if it's already true. The relationship, the career, the goal, the achievement, the personal change, whatever you're manifesting, even just a car or a handbag, it really doesn't matter what you're manifesting. Everyone has their own wish list in life, right? But if you're not mentally embodying as if it's already true, you don't need to believe it, but you need to think it, basically. That's what the kind of key principle of manifesting is. If you're not doing that consistently, then that's usually the top number one reason why you're not seeing what you want yet. And the goal is literally just about convincing yourself to believe in, and convincing yourself that you already believe this is already true, it's already yours. It's not about, oh, the circumstance hasn't shifted, oh, these 3 bad things happened, this person said this to me yesterday. That doesn't matter. That's not what stops or accelerates a manifestation. It's your reaction to those things, but mainly what you think to yourself. What is consistently going on? What are you persisting in? So something people tend to do is continuing to check results or check up on updates and see and refresh their phone or whatever it may be, refresh the moment and keep checking up. Is it here yet? Counting time, basically trying to quantify the entire process and journey and compare, the before to the current moment, the before and the after. If you keep doing that, that's not what you would be doing if you were in the end result. So it's not the right way to think, and that's not persisting in already thinking as if. And what it does is it keeps that result as your present reality. It puts it prevalent in your conscious mind. It probably feeds into something within the subconscious that's tied into the old circumstances. You're basically keeping this current reality and those past circumstances that have been playing out true as your present reality. That's what's going on. So when you replay that old story mentally, like I said, you're keeping it in place, you're holding it stuck, you're gluing it down into your current 3D reality, you're gluing it to the pavement and gluing it to the forefront of your mind, because you keep replaying that old story. You keep saying, I have to refresh, I have to check the calendar, I have to remind myself, this is how many days it's been, this is what's not happening in my reality. It's okay for that logical thought to come up, or for, like with me as a coach, obviously, when I tell people, don't replay circumstances, I don't mean never mention them to me in an email, for example. But, if there's a really good reason for you to acknowledge them, that's fine. But don't keep replaying it or questioning it or analyzing and delving into it and, letting your mind just kind of sit and rot in those types of thoughts. Something else I would remind you guys of is that the current circumstances are not some kind of objective reality. What you're going through right now, or what you've seen, or you not seeing your 3D change yet, you know, the topic and issue that we're dealing with in this video of your 3D circumstances not shifting, not reflecting what you want. This is not an objective be-all, end-all reality where just because you're not seeing it right now, it's failed, the manifestation hasn't worked. You know, what you're seeing right now is probably just a reflection of the old story kind of being delayed, the time lag that happens usually with manifesting, especially if it's something with mental resistance or something where another person is involved, where things need a little bit of time to conform and build up. It's brewing behind the scenes. And no, I'm not trying to make some kind of witchcraft analogy, but your recipe is brewing behind the scenes. So what you're seeing right now, it's not an objective reflection of your manifestation. It's not an objective reality. Everyone's perception is different. Whether you have a positive or negative mindset will really change how you see everything. So you can even just tell yourself, okay, it might be negative, or oh, this annoying thing still showed up, but it's the old story. It just filtered out. It just purged out. It is just a reflection of what was going on in my mind, being mirror reflected externally, which makes sense because in the past I used to think that, but now, so you're kind of doing like a bit of a revision mental diet in a conversation, but now I know I have my manifestation, and any second now I will see it in my 3D. Kind of flipping it around like that, and I'm actually going to talk about mental diet a little bit later, but spoiler alert, obviously that is a big part of it. So now let me read out a Neville Goddard quote I've written down that actually ties in directly to this. So you can see one of the OG, most, you know, iconic kind of teachers of law of assumption directly acknowledging this. But in this third dimensional world of ours, time beats slowly. And so we do not always observe the relationship of the visible world to our inner nature. So what he's highlighting there is obviously that what we see in our 3D in front of us visibly, what's going on in our world and our reality is connected to our inner nature. But what he said initially is important as well. In the 3D world, time beats slowly. So he's saying, you know, he's highlighting basically that it does take time to see what you want, to see your focus, to see this observation that you have held your focus on, meaning your manifestation, being reflected, and highlighting essentially that what's going on in our inner nature, what we experience and accept within ourselves, it is going to be reflected externally. If you struggle with implementing a manifestation routine, I actually think my LOA Coaching Darling membership is the best place for you. So for just £8.99 a month, you can just test it out for 1 month. If you really don't want to continue, then that's fine. But what you'll get for that is an exclusive challenge where I really go step by step, and you get to vote for it. So everyone who is part of the membership gets a say in what videos I post every month. You get 2 more exclusive pieces of content that no one else gets to see, as well as early access to all my long videos because I upload them early for you guys. So definitely click the button below to join if you want to test it out and join in on that. I did highlight just now a little bit of the purge as well. So your old story is going to be filtering out of your system, basically. It might be that the circumstances have purged out, and that doesn't mean things have to get worse or that your manifestation things have to get worse before they get better. I have heard people say that before, and sometimes that's the case, you know, where things are purging and, you know, the old circumstances seem really prevalent and your 3D just isn't what you want it to be. That's not a guarantee, and it doesn't have to work that way for manifesting, but it could be that what you've seen is just the old circumstances, and maybe you're paying even more attention to them right now. And it's that shift coming in from the old way of thinking, the old assumptions and beliefs you had, just accepting what you saw, accepting the treatment you received, and saying, well, this is just my reality, this is just the caliber of this relationship, whatever it may be, versus you now building these new assumptions. You see that distinction, you can feel and recognize, wow, this is how I used to think, this is how things used to be, and this is how I am focusing on this desired outcome now, and I'm starting to believe it. I'm being persistent in it. I'm actually focusing on and building up these new beliefs. It could just be that those old beliefs are filtering out your, maybe even more, like it could be your reticular activating system still picking up on those old examples of what you used to see and focus on. So just recognize and say, okay, this is the old story, the circumstances that maybe it feels like nothing has changed. What I'm seeing in the 3D is just me recognizing that's the old story. It's so important for you guys to also remember that behind the scenes movement and internal conforming precedes whatever you see externally. That is the first part. It's not that suddenly the world or God or whatever you might think is just suddenly causing things to change on a whim. It's your internal conforming, your focus, the effort that you put in, and behind the scenes movement, and everything that needs to build up and create this domino effect that leads to your end result, that precedes your 3D reality conforming. And really, life is just going to reflect where your mindset is focused on long term. You are not going to be letting doubt be a deciding factor for you. So your 3D is going to start shifting visibly. Something will happen, meaning someone might say something, you might see something on social media. It could be something subtle and small. And don't overanalyze or question this too much. Just take everything as it is. You know, if it's negative, just let it flow over you and apply your mental diet, for example. But you're not going to be letting doubt be a deciding factor and be a objective analysis or objective statement about your life and what you're capable of having, for example. So this is something that you need to build up. And I have other videos that talk about how to build on that mindset. But as your 3D starts to cooperate and shift, so to speak, you're going to know, and you should realize that really it's because you're not feeding into doubt. You're not letting doubt decide for you. You are going to respond to doubt and shut it down in your mind. But this is going to kind of happen in a more easy, natural way. You're going to realize that, okay, I no longer question or doubt or spiral about everything. And so my 3D is responding. This is going to be a direct reflection as well of your subconscious accepting those new assumptions. Not 100%, belief, obviously, that's not particularly likely until you get right to the end of your manifestation or until it's like fully physically yours. But if your frontal lobe is actually engaged, then your subconscious is building on those assumptions. And that's usually where that click happens, where you're just seeing your 3D reality shift and conform to that. So when your frontal lobe is engaged, this basically means imagining, focusing on, just really observing an outcome and paying attention to an idea or a thought, meaning being with your SP, having that, dream goal be your reality, just focusing on your manifestation as if it's here now, like mentally experiencing it and living in it. And even when you observe that ideal reality and that outcome, even if it's just a fleeting thought, even if it's a visual that comes up whilst affirming, or, maybe you're not good at visualizing, but you can kind of imagine something. Even if it's fleeting, that focus and engaging your frontal lobe is connecting you to that reality. It's convincing your mind more and more that it is actually yours. So as that is building up movement, also remember that movement doesn't always have to be directly visible. It doesn't have to be a direct movement where, while SP hasn't spoken to me, again, there's behind the scenes movement. Your 3D might not visibly conform, but you will see something shift. Even the way other people treat you, it might be better. Other men, other women, if you're manifesting a relationship, those are things and signs of your 3D conforming to you already being that new version. So it doesn't always need to be a directly visible form of movement. And as things start to conform more and more, as you start to see that shift come in, or even just one thing, like I said, one positive thing, you will probably realize and find that your mind is more on autopilot with this new positive mindset. I'm speaking from experience, I'm speaking from feedback I've seen. Literally, you're going to recognize, if you pay attention and apply self-awareness, which I always recommend, that your mind is kind of on autopilot, whether it's when you wake up, when something bad happens, when you need to apply your mental diet, whatever it may be. For me, I am often like kind of repeating my affirmations to me. They're very much on autopilot, even old ones maybe that I don't use as much, or a routine I followed for a while. Sometimes my mind just starts shifting back to that. And I think, oh, wait a minute, I don't use that affirmation anymore. But my mind remembers that. It's like this autopilot, it's a learned habit. And the amazing quantum theory that ties into this is that before the new reality and this new timeline and the new kind of, circumstances that are positive, that align with your manifestation, before that fully stabilizes and becomes like your full reality, it needs to stabilize internally. So what that means is before it can become your full physical reality, it needs to be internally stabilized and accepted. And that's what is happening as your 3D starts to conform, as you persist and be more consistent. You'll see that shift from no movement, or as you might, just assume and tell yourself, well, no movement, into the visible movement, because you are stabilizing this new outcome, this new reality where you have what you want in your own mind. That's what needs to happen. Literally building up positive thought patterns. You're teaching your neural pathways how to respond and how to shift according to that, just because it's like a kind of secondary effect of you focusing on and applying repetition and consistency. Your neural pathways in your brain are literally going to adjust according to that. And all of that is happening as your subconscious mind is being saturated with this new reality. And that is, like I said, what needs to precede the 3D conforming. So don't keep questioning and complaining and asking, why is this happening? Why are the circumstances like this? There are pretty simple solutions. I highlight this, other coaches highlight this in their videos. But really, it is, like I said, repetition, consistency, persisting with the new reality. But as you are doing all of these things and ticking off those boxes and those new thought patterns and ways of thinking, your 3D will respond to that. Basically, when you're not focused on that old version, you're not going to be seeing it reflected in your circumstances. I personally love to think of it as like co-creation, because when I am connected to my faith as well, which not everyone has to be, but I personally really connect with that and it helps me a lot. I already know that what I want, what I'm asking for, what's best for me, these positive life outcomes, being fulfilled, accomplished, happy, being the best version of myself, like for everyone's sake, I know that it's already provided with my faith. I know that is available, that is possible, and I'm being guided to that. So I like to connect them both. Pay attention to the mental resistance that you're experiencing. It is likely to happen in some way. That is definitely going to be a prevalent part of why your 3D isn't quickly conforming, or you haven't yet seen it happen. Maybe the stage that you're in right now with your manifestation or your mindset. But pay attention to that mental resistance. Pay attention to what's going on. And yeah, like I said, self-awareness of what's really pushing against the new reality, what's holding you back mentally. And then from there, but also in regards to any time that you're thinking of your desire, apply your mental diet. Mental diet is usually the number one way to fix this. And remembering that you're in control of your reality. It's not waiting for someone else to do something or say something or change. You can simply decide, I'm just going to change the way I think. I'm going to be self-aware. I'm going to work on my willpower. I'm going to be strong-willed. I'm going to be decisive and focused on what I want and work towards it every single day, no matter what. And making sure you're not falling into that trap of putting in the bare minimum, just doing a little bit, but then falling back into the old way of thinking, judging and looking at circumstances, and then panicking, and then repeating the same cycle and wondering why nothing is changing. Make sure you're not feeding into that or continuing that if that maybe describes where you have been. Something else that I'll briefly touch on, but I've talked about this in other videos about kind of dealing with other people's comments and people in your life, just trying to minimize genuinely negative influences. And I don't mean people having an opposing viewpoint or worrying about you or your friends and family, but genuinely minimizing what has been triggering a negative influence online. This is quite common. And just distractions. That's where the willpower comes in, being strong-willed and knowing, okay, I'm going to turn off this reality TV show, this drama. I'm going to stop scrolling social media, doing something more productive. Because when you're experiencing a dip, whether it's a day or a week, analyzing and experiencing negative circumstances, or you're spiraling, that is the exact moment to lock in. So it is totally normal to have some ups and downs. So don't panic or worry and wonder what's wrong. Nothing's wrong. It's normal. You're a human. Just keep persisting throughout those. If you can push past that and recognize, what's most likely causing it, then you're on the right track. So just remember that whatever is impressed onto your subconscious mind is going to decide what you experience in your 3D reality. So it is within your control. Give it a bit of time and patience, but stay persistent. And I think that really summarizes all the advice you guys need for this video.